Welcome back to the channel. My name is Tronage, and today we're going to be talking about the DalCyclone foldable, yes, foldable props. Want to check it out with me? Then stick around. Alright guys, these are the DalCyclone foldable props. So if you're not familiar, a foldable prop, it's nothing necessarily new because a lot of like the DJI and stuff, they've had like foldable props for a while. But this is new, at least to me, for more of the racing, freestyling, you know, community, in the sense of that these are for our like build it at home drones. Super excited about these. They actually came in my quad box. If you want to see the full unboxing of that, you can check it out in the corner there. But they came in the June 2020 box. And I figured that these were pretty cool enough to actually warrant their own video. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna take a little look at them. We're gonna talk about my first impressions of them, how to build them, because you do have to put them together, at least the version that I got. They don't come pre-assembled. And we'll talk about it a little bit. But before we do any of that, make sure you slam that subscribe button. While you're at it, hit that bell icon. Makes finding my videos a whole heck of a lot easier, helps support the channel, and it keeps you in the know when I post videos such as this one. All right, so why don't you come on in and we'll show up these props and how to put them together. All right, guys, we got the DalProp fold props here. So what I've done is I've actually opened it up and I've laid out everything that comes in the package. And as you can see, there are a lot of parts. And I recommend when you buy these initially that you take special care in putting them together, as well as how they get, you know, put on your quad, because we all know there's clockwise and there's counterclockwise props. So you need to first be aware of which is a counterclockwise and which is a clockwise prop. And that can sometimes throw people for a loop because they'll put the props on in the wrong spots, or they'll put two clockwise on. Even myself, when I have a crash and I swap out a prop, sometimes I'll accidentally put a prop on. You go to arm and you take off and it just does like a couple cartwheels and you're like, oh crap, I put the props on wrong. Here you have that same sort of scenario, but now you have to also make sure you build them correctly, because as you can see, there are separate parts for the blades and there's separate parts for the hubs. And not only that, but you have to build it a certain way, kind of like what's top and what's bottom. So when you open up your package, what I would say is I would pour it out, sort it, so you can get everything together. So let me give you the tour here. So these are gonna be your clockwise props, and each prop has three. So you can see this is one clockwise prop, this is one clockwise prop. How do I know they're clockwise? Because when we take a look at it up on the camera here, you'll see this is the leading edge. That's the edge that's gonna hit into the air first. How do we know that? Because this is the sharp like blade, like knife edge version. That's not what's gonna hit into the air first. What hits into the air first is gonna be the more blunter, rounder leading edge. So because of that, if you were to spin just this one prop, you can see that this would spin clockwise. So this is a clockwise blade, and you find all 6 of them that match that same style. Over here we have the counterclockwise. Again, how do we know that? Because this is the knife-like edge, that's the trailing edge, and this is the more blunt edge. So this prop would spin this way through the air, which would then be the counterclockwise. And you take all of those, and I keep those separate so they know clockwise, counterclockwise. Now when it comes to the hub, you might think it doesn't matter, but it kind of does. Especially if you're using POPO, which is the push-on, push-off mounting ways of putting props onto a motor. So the hub is comprised of 2 parts. They have a top, and this part is the top. So without being confused, this is the top. This is the part where your nut would go. So your nut would be resting on the top here if you were using a regular mounting system, or if you're using the POPO, there wouldn't be a nut sitting there, but this needs to be the top. This component part is going to be the bottom. This is the part that's going to be resting near the motor end of things. And you can tell that because If you use this at Popo, the Popo little notches, I doubt you'll be able to see them on the camera here, but the little notches inside that hub, if I get the glare just right, you might see them. Those little notches that the ball bearings in the Popo system lock into need to be on the top. So assembly is really quite easy, to be honest with you. All you gotta do is you gotta pick whichever one you wanna build. You don't wanna mix and match these sides because you'll end up with some wackadoo prop. So let's say you want to build the counterclockwise. So I'm going to go from the counterclockwise side here and I'm going to start assembling them. Now remember, this is going to be your top. So if I was to put these on here this way, right, with the leading edge over here, but then I mount it on my quad this way, it's going to be very awkward of a situation that I'm entailing. So what you need to do is you need to remember that this is going to be the up, because that's how the Popo works. So you need to put them in this way, kind of building it upside down almost, because you want to make sure that your leading edge for a counterclockwise prop with this side up. Now you might say to yourself, well, why are you building it onto the top? Why don't you just stick them onto the bottom? And I guess you could do that. The problem is the bottom is the pin and it kind of rattles around in there. See, it doesn't lock securely that way, so it's kind of awkward. But mounting it into this is much more secure. But you don't want to, if you build it, what I'm trying to say is this: if you build it like this upside down by accident and you put all these on the way you think they should go, right? Now that would be great if you're going to put this prop on your motor exactly like this, but that's not how this is made. The Popo is on the bottom. So it really needs to go mounted onto the quad this way. But now you see my prop is basically completely upside down. It's not built correctly anymore. So that's why when you're assembling it, you have to take that into consideration with what you're doing so that you don't screw up how to build it. So just know that the Popo needs to sit on the upward position. So this would be your top. So just hold it like that. Put all your props on the correct way so that they look correct and normal as they should. And just hold them on with your fingers. So now this would be a correct prop orientation. You see how it would spin counterclockwise. All of my leading edges are correct and the top hub is correct. Then you just flip it over and now you're fine, and you snap your little bottom on. And that's it. You're done. And you now can pop this onto a quad or whatever you want. And you can see it is foldable. So this one prop takes so much littler space than a normal prop would, because a normal prop would be sitting here like that. And you can see now, as far as practical goes for the actual device, what makes foldable awesome is because you can fold these up. So now when it's on your quad, you can fold these in. You don't have to worry about them breaking when in transport, when you have it like strapped to the back of your bag or something. Or even you build these, you put them in your gear bag for spares. You know, it takes up very little space compared to a thing that's shaped like this. So that's the whole advantage to folding. The other advantage supposedly is that, like, when you're flying with them, they're a little bit more durable, believe it or not, because if you think about it, if this was a rigid device, and let's take this stick, and I'm flying along and I'm about to hit into something, and you hit, if this is rigid, it's going to hit hard and either chop or, you know, dent or whatever, if you get what I'm saying. Being that it has this pivot point, it's sort of like, kind of like a weed whacker where it hits, but it can still continue spinning, and instead of smacking it and making a dent or chip into it, it can potentially spin right past it, and then after it's gone past, it can then, with centrifugal force, fling back out. Because essentially that's how this is working. When you spin this fast enough, these blades will all stand in a perfect orientation, and then if it does hit something, it does have that give. Now, one question that I've heard coming up about these is, do they work in turtle mode? Because if you turn them over, will they still spin backwards correctly? And the answer is yes. If you spin them backwards, they're still going to function. They're still going to all kick out, and they'll still all, you know, blow the air the opposite direction. So they work in that format as well. But anyway, that's how you build them. And what's great about these also is that the hubs, they make all different kinds of colored hubs. They make all different colored blades. So you can kind of mix and match and formulate your own little design. Fortunately, these work out great for me because my logo is purple and green. I mean, they're kind of more of a yellow maybe, but still, I'm going to call it green. And I'm definitely digging the look of them. Here's where I am with these foldable props. First of all, I think they're freaking genius, and from just a engineering standpoint, a design standpoint, because let's be honest, we've all carried around, these standard size props, and you have a bag of them in your gear bag. They can bend, they can break, they can snap. You put them on your quad and you have it strapped to the back of your bag. And, they're poking into everything, they're stabbing everything, they're catching on everything. So it'd be great to have, something like this that you can just fold up into a little package. And it, might be a little floppy and whatnot, but the point is that it's not sticking out like this is. Now, these are basically identical. This is a DalCyclone prop. This is a DalCyclone prop, same brand. And in fact, they're the same pitch. These are the Fold F5s, which are a 51/475, or otherwise a 5.1 inch with a 4.75 pitch. That's exactly the same as this prop. So what's the difference between these two? Well, the biggest difference is that in weight. Not much. This prop weighs 3.75 grams. This prop weighs 4.25 grams. So the difference between these is really a half of a gram. So by the time you put 4 of these on your quad, you're looking about 2 grams total in additional weight that you'll be getting with the Fold versus the standard prop. Now, is that a lot? Well, it really depends on your build and what's important to you. If you're trying to shave every little last gram, trying to make a 5-inch quad at a sub 250 gram weight, then yeah, those 2 grams might mean a lot to you. If you don't care and you're just trying to build a quad, you want convenience, on a 5-inch quad, 2 grams is really not a big deal. So it's really up to you which is better for that instance. Now, which would be more durable and stuff? Well, I'm going to say that they're going to be a little bit of a plus and a minus between them because, as I was saying, this one being a rigid prop, when it crashes, it's going to break. It's going to either chip, it's going to bend, it's going to something if it strikes something because it's solid. These, on the other hand, have that ability to pivot. So as it strikes into something, rather than trying to break, because the hub is going to continue to spin. It's not going to stop because it hit something. So it's going to force that blade into it. With these pivoted ones, the hub can continue to spin and the blade can actually just move back out of the way. Now, there probably will be some damage because there will be some impacting force, but it's not going to break it off per se. So that's the one side of the coin. The other side of the coin, though, is that these are all attached with these little pivot points. So who's to say if these pivot points, what's the durability, what's the longevity, how long can they last? Because remember, when you spin this up and you're flying it, these props are, the little vanes are all going to point out to their correct positions like this, but they're always in a constant pull. They're always trying to come out of the hub. Now, does that mean you could be flying around and then randomly your prop will explode? And by explode, I mean just come apart? Maybe, I don't know. I've had that happen with regular props, by the way. So it's nothing unusual. In fact, flying regular props after a few crashes, we've all done it. Don't be like you don't do this, because we've all done it. Where you crash and it's bent and you're like, oh, I'll just bend this back up and, I'll just kind of rub my fingernail over, work that little dent out of it or whatever, and you say, oh, it's good enough, and you keep flying it. Well, I had it where I did that a couple of times, and then on a punch out, the blades of my prop kind of just went poof. And exploded, and the quad came flying to the ground. I guess plummeting, not flying, because flying would have kept it up in the air. So I've had solid hubbed props explode on me. So that doesn't necessarily mean that a folding prop wouldn't necessarily explode on me. So, you know, only time will tell, giving it some use, giving it some tests, and seeing just how it functions and how it works. But I think if weight is not so much of a concern, and again, we're talking about really no weight. It's 2 grams total for 4 props, or half a gram per prop. If weight's not a big issue, the customizableness about color between hub and the blades, I think is pretty cool. Storage-wise is incredible, being able to pack them up and have them all folded up like this. Being on your quad and folded up, I think is great. The only other question will be is just for performance, and I feel like there will be some degree of performance that the folding ones won't be able to provide that a solid prop will provide, and that's going to be specifically in the realm of abrupt changes in motor speed. What I mean by that is when you crank it and you hit it and you punch it, let's say, there's going to be a lag time because the motor is going to want to turn, but there's going to be air resistance and inertia resistance of the prop not letting it turn, but that's where you have like a torquey motor that can spin the prop and get it moving through the air. So you're going to have that sort of a delay and that feedback from how punchy and poppy a prop will feel on a quad. Now, on the flip side, these foldable ones are a little bit different. When you go to punch it, that hub can really start to go. It can immediately go until you get into a scenario where like all the props are kind of like sniggled in, and it like you turn your 5-inch prop into like almost like a 3-inch prop, because they've all like maxed out. So if you go abruptly, it'll kind of curl them in, I think. But then because of the forces involved, they will then start to then straighten themselves back out. So I feel like that's going to be less wear and tear on your motor, maybe, because it doesn't have that struggle to get it to spin up. It sort of acts almost like a governor, where it'll like let the motor do what it needs to do, and then the props kind of catch up. But at the same token, then you may not feel that immediate feedback from when you hit it. So there may be a little bit of a, I don't want to say sluggishness, but it may just have a more, I personally think it's a better thing and more of a smoother, buttery kind of a feel versus abrupt. So it may help smooth things out. It's, you know, it's really just your preference is really what it boils down to. It's really your preference. But anyway, these are super cool, and I can't wait to throw them on my test rig to test them out and see really how does their thrust perform, even more specifically to the exact same prop made by Dal Cyclone in the same size, the same everything, just a solid prop versus a folding prop. Now, the real question, though, is what do you think? Are you excited about these foldable props? Is this something that you would fly? Have you flown these before? Please let me know down in those comments below. I'd love to hear about your experiences with these, what you think about them. Does 2 grams really make that big of a difference in a 5-inch quad that would make or break? Would that be a deal breaker just on that alone? Is this something you want to try out and check out? Do you like the different color schemes that you can design and really personalize on your quad? Let me know down below. I really love hearing that information. All right, guys. So as always, my name's Tronage. Fly strong.